Let's discuss this a bit more, and we're joined by the deputy editor of the British internet magazine Spiked, Rob Lyons, on the line with us tonight. Rob, good evening to you. Thanks for being on RT. So Russia's been raising concerns, as we've just heard there again today, that NATO allies have gone beyond, as Russia sees it, the UN resolution in their actions in Libya. How serious are those violations as you see it, sir?
Well, because the original UN resolution was so vague, I think that what's happening is that Britain, France and other countries are stretching it out as much as they possibly can. So the definition of protecting civilians has gone from taking a few pot shots at tanks through to putting a few boots on the ground, and that may even go further, this talk of sending in military personnel to protect humanitarian aid. So they are really stretching the bounds of what's actually within that UN resolution. But at the same time, I think they're very undecided themselves about exactly how far they want to go. I think they would want to avoid getting involved in a ground war. At the same time, the very logic of their positions about trying to get rid of Colonel Gaddafi is constantly pushing them towards getting more and more involved.
I guess a lot of the argument here at the moment is that coalition airstrikes have so far not been enough to prevent the civilian bloodshed. So I guess they're saying it's strengthening the case then for a ground operation is the best way ultimately.
Well, I mean, there's a few stages in between. For example, they're desperately trying to persuade the Americans to bring in some particular kinds of aircraft that are very good at tackling small targets, and they'll do their very best to try and avoid putting boots on the ground if they possibly can. But it is an unpredictable situation, and faced with the possibility that after all their efforts so far, that large numbers of civilians get killed, it's going to put them in a very awkward position about what they do next.
Well, the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon is in Moscow right now. Has called for an effective ceasefire and political dialogue in Libya. Nice words, but do you think there's any real chance of that happening anytime soon?
Well, it sounds to me as if Gaddafi is pretty determined to try and put down this rebellion and establish firm control once again, and that's going to be very, very difficult as long as the Western powers are involved. So what you're going to end up with is actually a bloody stalemate where killing goes on, as we've seen in Misrata in the last few days. Killing goes on, but there is nobody has the strength on either side to actually force a resolution to the situation, and I think that we're going to see a lot of that in the next few weeks.
And do you think this has actually gone too far now between the two sides in Libya for them ever to get round the negotiating table?
Well, I mean, old enemies will get together in the right circumstances. But at the moment, as long as the West intervenes on one side, then the rebels have got every interest in trying to keep the thing going, hoping that the West will step up their involvement, and so things will carry on this, as I said, very bloody stalemate for a while yet, I think.
And what do you make of this warning from the Russian presidential representative for African affairs, saying that if ground operations do begin, it could trigger a much larger African war? Is that really a prospect do you think that NATO countries would want or could even cope with, indeed, if it happened?
Well, I don't think they'll want that, and they'll do everything they can to stop it. At the moment, it seems Libya is a fairly isolated case. That the regimes around there are much more stabilised now, and they want to kind of keep out of it as much as possible because they've got their own problems. So I think Libya will be kind of a running sore for a while yet, but will remain relatively isolated.
Thanks for being on the programme, Rob Lyons, deputy editor of Spike magazine. Good to hear your views.